In this video help, we're going to be talking about the service work order. When you're creating a new service work order, you go to the Do Action screen, add a new record for this particular Edit Invoice area for that work order. Let's take a look at the screen here. We're on the service work order. Let's go ahead and go through this starting at the top. You have the navigation and Do Action screens, and each work order that's created has its own unique ID. You would automatically go in and then add from the values that are in the asset screen. You would put the asset in that is related to this particular item, and it will automatically add its description right thereafter. What we're doing here in this area is we're working on a particular item, and you want to put the end item in here as its description, which is the asset that is being worked on. If it's a smaller portion of the same item as an ancillary item, then you should have a separate record for that within the asset management system. But you should have a item up here that is the item that is the end item or subassembly that you're working on, and then the service parts that are added here, or the service work and labor that's put in here, would be documented against this item here by its record ID, and the information that for each service that you're doing would be accounted for. The first thing you want to do when you come in here, you have a service types list, and you can see over here it has inspection, scheduled and unscheduled. You can add additional items in here if you have specific things. You may be doing who knows, there could be many different things that you could put in here as far as the kind of service or the type of service that you're doing. What you'd want to do is you'd want to go ahead and add that information in here by adding a new record in this screen, and then editing it up in this field, and then adding the information for that particular thing. And then when you go back to the actual record here in the service work order, it would be added to the drop-down list. The same thing goes for the serviceman. In this particular case, if you're looking at a serviceman and you tap into that field, you're going to get a pop-up where it shows the person's name and their labor rate. The labor rate is what is used when you're popping it up to add the labor rate once times the labor rate, and it should be the quantity. It could be the quantity of hours, like 1.5 hours at $35 would be, and in this case you see the labor down here, 2 hours, and there was not a money factor put in here because labor doesn't have a fixed number. This is a part set price, meaning that there's no set price for the labor where there is for an actual part, and so you would put in the actual amount in here that is actually being charged for the labor against that particular task that you're doing. So Jim Gold, for example, is a $43 per hour labor rate. Times 2 is 86. And down through the line, if you're looking here, you'll see there's a long work order. The long work order we're going to be covering in a few minutes, but basically what it does is it takes the edit screen here and turns it into an actual work order that you could print out if you needed to have a paper copy of it. If you want to go see this item in the actual inventory, you could click here to go to the inventory for that particular item and make modifications or changes to notes or whatever in that area. And then the portal would take you to the individual line item portal for this item right here so that you can do whatever you need to do there, like a search. Obviously, these things are individual records within the portal, and they cannot be searched in this screen as per se. The one thing we did not cover up here is the service date is the date of which you're actually performing the service, the time that you actually start the service, and then the time you finish the service. This helps to block out the time so that you can schedule. And if you'll notice that you'll see down here, there's actually a scheduled calendar where you can schedule your unscheduled or scheduled labor or task that you're doing by setting up the actual day and time that this is supposed to be done in the calendar. And the same thing would go here where you'd put in the date and time, and then the calendar would show you when you are actually scheduled to do this stuff as far as day-to-day services that you're doing. Obviously, unscheduled can come in any time, and that's a priority basis as needed to get those required repairs done. Now in this case, the individual items will sum up and be calculated over here for the work order sum. And let's go ahead and look now. We're going to pop over real quick here, and we're going to look at the work order portal. In the work order portal, you can see the list item for the labor and the extended price times the amount. If you go over here and you look at the prior record, make it the first record. In this case, you see the first one, and you can navigate through the different records. And if you do a search, you want to do the show all records when you get done doing whatever you're doing in the search. Now, one of the places you'd want to do a search would be in a list view. And a list view like the type items or the service work order list view is a good example of that. Where you're in the work order, here's the top level item that you're working on as far as the service is concerned, its description, its unscheduled maintenance on this date, and this is the work order sum to date. And then you can click back on this button to go back into that particular screen and the edit menu area. Now let's look at the long invoice. This is quite interesting. If you click on it, it's going to come up and it's going to show you all the work orders that are currently in selection on the current selection. What does that mean? If somebody has done a search over here, only the items that are in the search would be shown. If you need to show all the items, you would do a show all records or navigate through the records as needed through these 4 buttons right here. Or you can omit records. If you want to omit a record, just click anywhere in the field to make it active and omit that record. Then you can do the reverse of it, saying show only the omitted records. But most often, the best way to do this is to go ahead and do a search for the record that you're looking for, and you can base it on the search work order or the unscheduled and see all unscheduled, and you can put it in there for a specific date and put the date in when you do the search. For example, if I flip this over and I put in a item part number or a service date, the service date is going to allow me to scroll through and pick a date. Or if I know the work order I want, I can just put in the work order number. I could put a start time if I wanted to. I could combine any of these items for, like, I could see type items. I could click in there and see what I want to do for type items. Or I can put in the, say for the serviceman, for example, I want to pick a serviceman and see all the things on a particular date that they were doing labor, so I could see where they were actually working. And what will happen is it'll summarize at the bottom all the information for that particular set of records that I'm looking at. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back over and I'm going to say perform the search, and it's going to say, well, you didn't put anything in there. Well, you need to put something in. You can either cancel and go back and do that, or just say modify it to go back in and add the data that you want to, and if you don't, you just say cancel. And what cancel does is it flips the record back over and shows it back for the current records that are in selection. Let's go ahead and do one more thing over here. Let's go ahead and run the report. Anytime that you do a search, you need to run the report so it puts the header information back up here, which is the asset name and the asset description. And of course, the work order is the one up here, work order 2, and so forth through the area. Now, you cannot search these fields up here, but any field down here will be repeated, so you can search within this area to find them. You can also click in the next record for another task that's in that particular search work order, and you're searching for those items within that work order for those items. Now, what it'll do is it'll bring up the work order for that particular item, and then if you wanted to, you can actually, after you do the search, go in and look at the the list view, and it should reduce the amount of work orders that you're working in based on the one you're actually doing the search on. So that's a little tidbit that's helped to know about. The next thing you would do is you have the work order portal, which is the actual line items where you can do searches in here like we did in the inventory screens to find the items that we want to find as far as individual items. Then again, you can go ahead and look in the work order report portal, and that would show you the work order for those items with those items that are in that particular work order as far as what replacement items were used and what items were actually managed within this report, and then the summary at the bottom for the sub-summary for each of the main things, which is the to the ID level. If you have additional ones, then it'll be a sub-summary for that particular record. So these 390 and 86 are the individual ones. So if I click here, this is the one that's in work order 2. This is work order 1. And these are the individual items that are in that work order that were worked on. So there's more than one of them in here, as you can see, and that's how the report actually works. If you want to edit that record, you can click on edit. It'll take you back into that record. And once you get done, for example, if you do a find, remember now to run the report to add the headers back in again. So you have the header at here and the asset ID and the service worker order ID. Let's go down the list. We're going to go to the service type list. And this is the one we just showed you a little while ago. So we're going down through the sequence where you have inspection, scheduled, and unscheduled. We're going to go to the next one, which is the service portal. This is very interesting in this one. Basically, you do like you do in all of these. You add a new record if you want to edit it, and then edit it in this field, in this field. What you would be doing in here is you would want to edit the people that are currently in there and putting your own staff in there that are doing work and their labor rate. And you can always come back later if you need to and update or reduce or add to the labor rate based on the new labor rate for the person if it changes. Their position may be improved, or maybe they're doing a job where they're doing it at a lesser rate for a purpose. Now remember, when you're in the actual work order, this shows you in the name and this next to it. You can also edit in the work order and say, for example, this particular task is not done at the full labor rate. Maybe it's $25 per hour, where it's something that's subordinate tasks that you're doing. All you have to do is just skip over the labor rate and that is in the actual name together and go ahead and put the labor rate in the work order. So let's go back and look at that. Instead of putting in the labor rate in this particular field, you would go ahead, that was shown here. You'll see it says 43. If it's a less task cost-wise, you can put the, say, like $25 in there. So you can edit those as required in order to put the proper information in there. Let's go back to our menu over here. We have the Serviceman portal we just finished, and the calendar. Now the calendar, we've touched on it just slightly, but I'm going to come back. This is the Google Calendar. You can have individual service techs or people within your organization having their own service calendar individually for each person, or you can have one main calendar and you can run the main calendar on one sign up for a Google Calendar for all the service that you do, so you can see it all in the calendar. When you're in the calendar, you can break it off within one main calendar and put individual service people and technicians in that main calendar if you'd like to, so you can assign those individually as required. If you need more information about how to use the Google Calendar, just go ahead and hit the help, and then you will go ahead and get information as far as the how to use the calendar. If you have an account and start the account by creating a new one, by creating an account, you can go in after you're in there and read all the information that's related to the calendar. This does require an internet connection, so this you would have to have an internet connection in order to edit and manage the calendar itself. Okay, so what we've covered, and I'm going to recap, we went to the service work order, the service work order list view, the order portal, the work order portal, which is the sub to the main one, and then the report for the work order, and the service type list where we're editing the type of labor or item that we're doing as far as its type of work that we're doing, the serviceman's portal where we have the serviceman's rate and name, and the schedule calendar that we're reviewing right here. Now this concludes the videos that are in the application. If you have an issue and you would like to get support, what happens, we have two ways to get support. You can go ahead and go to the, let's go back, go into the any one of the screens, go to Do Action and go down to the Developer Support and click on there. You can start a chat on the screen when we're during our working hours where we're available, or you can go to the website and create a request for information, and it'll be directly sent to the support area where you can get answers to your questions if you have them. If you have any other additional questions or whatever, go to that support site and ask for help. Thank you.